The Miami Marlins are coming off a bit of a lackluster season, finishing 2022 with a record of 69 and 93. Hey, nice, 69. But no, seriously though, it wasn't the greatest year for the Marlins. They had a Cy Young winner in Sandy Alcantara, had some very promising pitching, but the bats could never fully get going. Heading into 2023, they've made some moves. They've added a couple bats to their roster. They have given up a little bit of pitching, but can they be able to finally put the whole package together and show an improved team and maybe even show improvements as a whole? Can that happen? We'll find that out. But John and I are going to discuss that. So my name is Derek. I'm here with John. You're watching the Miami Marlins team profile right here in Bleacher Brawls. And let's get straight into it. As I said, the Marlins 69 and 93 in 2022. Wasn't a great year. They had bright spots. They had some low spots. So first things first, as we do in the team profiles, we're going to look at the key players for the Miami Marlins. I'll go to John first. 3 key players, and if you have to highlight one of them, who would it be?
So 3 key players, obviously Cy Young winner Sandy Alcantara, batting champion, current reigning AL batting champion, Luis Arraez, whatever, I can't pronounce
Arise.
Arise, yeah. There you go. And Jazz Chisholm. If I'm gonna highlight one of them, I'm going Sandy Alcantara because pitching. You know, you're the Cy Young winner, like you win on pitching, and I feel like this Miami Marlins team has some pretty decent pitching, led by like the reigning Cy Young Award winner,
unanimous Cy Young Award winner too.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously their very big key piece. I'm not just going to repeat the same 3 players. Obviously, all those 3 guys are very key players. I'm going to highlight one of them, not named Sandy Alcantara, because I don't want to just repeat John. I do want to also give a shout out to Jazz Chisholm for becoming the MLB The Show 23 cover athlete. So if you've been living under a rock, there's that piece of news. But also, too, I think a big piece for them will be Edward Cabrera. Very interesting arm rotation guy. I very much like what he brings to the table. He's still very young, though, still very raw, but I think he's got, all the potential in the world to be a very good starting pitcher in the league. But I do want to focus on Luis Arraez. I am stupidly high on him. I've gone out there and said, I think if Luis Arraez stays healthy for a full season, he can hit 350. Legitimately hit 350. He was hitting 340 at the All-Star break last year. Then he had a hamstring injury, which his average shot from 340 to 315 by the end of the year. And he's playing injured the whole second half of the year. So I'm looking at him if he stays healthy, he legitimately could hit 350. I think his career batting average is 312. Which is it's outrageous. You don't see it anymore. He's a one-in-a-kind player that you don't see a guy like him anymore. Doesn't swing a miss, doesn't strike out. So I'm extremely high on him, and I have high hopes for him now going to the Marlins playing second base. But it does cause something else as we get into their off-season moves, their big off-season moves. Obviously, they traded Pablo Lopez plus 2 prospects to bring in Luis Arraez. And that caused Jazz Chisholm. He's now being moved to center field, which rumored that he actually suggested it. But it's still a big move, obviously, him moving to center. They have also brought in a guy like Johnny Cueto, Gene Segura. So I'll go to John first. What's kind of their big move of this offseason? What is the one move that you put your finger on and go, this is their big move?
Well, since you named their moves so far, I'll name the one move that you didn't name that obviously hits very close to me. They let Don Mattingly walk as the manager. I think obviously that's a mistake. Don Mattingly is an all-time Yankee, all-time great, even though it probably means nothing to the Marlins, and maybe not quite an all-time great, but in my mind, he's an all-time great. But he was a good manager and seemed to do well with the kid. So all in all, as much as I love Don Mattingly, I understand moving on. For me, I think I was bringing in Luis Arraez, whatever. I can't. I'll never get it right. Bringing him in as trading Pablo Lopez. I kind of thought there's a chance Pablo Lopez would get traded, but I did not expect Pablo Lopez to get traded with 2 prospects. That was actually really shocking. If you told me going off into this offseason that the Marlins would be trading away prospects along with Pablo Lopez.
We would have thought they're getting Brian Reynolds.
What was that?
You would think they'd be getting someone like Brian Reynolds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's wild. That's definitely probably their biggest move. Yes, in terms they brought in a guy like Arraez, and they did have to trade Pablo Lopez, also Jose Salas, and it's yeah, it's a big move. But I think this also is like a double move because they also are now having to move Jazz Chisholm to center field because they're going to play Rise at second base because they can't play him at first because they have Garrett Cooper, and it's just all over the place. And Arise, I love him. Defensively at second, I have question marks. Jazz Chisholm now in center field, I have question marks. It's a team that should be a fun team, and it like in theory, and they should have some very good starting pitching, and it should be a fun team to watch in terms of Jazz Chisholm and just his personality as a whole. But you start looking at it and you go, okay, but there's so many question marks, and just a guy moving Jazz Chisholm to center field just brings even more question marks to me. It's like one of those things where it's like, I get what they're doing, but it's like there's question marks, big old question marks. And they brought in a guy like Matt Barnes, and as a Red Sox fan myself, you just brought in Matt Barnes and that whole case. Can you maybe turn him around? Who knows? But who knows? Question mark. But with that though, I think that's kind of the key move. It's really two moves in one move. Trading Lopez and the two prospects for Rise, and then also Jazz Chisholm moving center. Now, what are your expectations for this Marlins team heading into 2023? 69 and 93 last year. Obviously, I think the Marlins are looking to improve because they're bringing in big league players. But what does that really mean for them? What does improvement really look like for them?
I mean, how are they going to improve in this division, right? Like, I mean, the Mets are stacked and could potentially still get better. The Braves are a stacked team. Phillies just went to the World Series. Phillies just went to the World Series, and I still think they're not as good as the Mets and Braves. So as hard as this is, I mean, how hard is it to be like of the hundreds of Marlins fans out there? Like, this has got to be really tough, knowing that your team is like basically looking at fourth place as the best case scenario. Yeah, I feel it's tough. I do still, and I think it is fourth place. I think they're going to be better than the Nationals, but I don't think they're going to be anywhere near as good as those teams. So, as the top three teams in that division. So, I hope the future is bright for the Marlins. I did enjoy watching them beat the Indians in '97. I did not feel the same way if anything that might have happened for any other World Series. Yeah, best case scenario, fourth place.
Yeah, I think that's fourth place is probably where they end up. It's just rough. They have pieces. They have Sandy Alcantara, unanimous Cy Young winner. You have Jazz Chisholm, was exciting. Can he stay healthy though? Luis Ariz, I love him. I'm super high on him. I wish he could play for the Red Sox, but also too many left-handed liners. That's a whole other thing. Garrett Cooper, I think I think he's really good. Just has never fully kind of gotten the reps to put it together, or whatever the reason. It's never fully put it together, at least in where I think he can be. They brought in Gene Segura. They have Joey Wendell, who was very serviceable with the Rays, and they traded Miggy Rojas. It's another trade they made. They got young pitching, Edward Cabrera. They have pieces, Jorge Soler and Avisail Garcia, who they brought in heading into 2022. It's just those pieces, like, they haven't meshed together and made a team that just fit, works, where all those pieces work together. And I think that's kind of the problem they're running into. It's like they have pieces, but they don't have enough, and also those pieces don't work together great. So Jacob Stallings they brought in last offseason. His offense dropped significantly, and his defense dropped from elite to league average. And yeah, you would think he'd have a bounce back year, but there's so many question marks with this team. They have a bright future. They have a lot of good prospects, a lot of good pitching prospects, some injuries with a couple of those guys, though, but a very bright future. But there are a lot of question marks for right now. Fourth place is probably what they look at in the division, but they could still, I wouldn't be shocked if they pulled off like a 75 to 78 win season, but that's still going to be that's going to be probably 10 games away from third place still.
Exactly. This team, I feel bad. Like I said, for all the hundreds of Marlins fans out there, I feel bad for you because it's gonna be a long season.
Yeah, they have their bright spots. Like a guy like whenever Alcantara pitches, you go watch that game. But it could be a rough year for Marlins fans. But hopefully they can turn around at some point in the future because they do have the pieces there. But yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap it up on this Miami Marlins team profile. So if you haven't missed some of our team profiles, the link to the playlist will be in the description, the first link. So check that thing out. Make sure to check out all our other Bleacher Brawls links, the Bleacher Brawls website, podcast, Instagram, and Twitter, plus all the crew's Twitters. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever we post. This team profile series, a big part of our 40 videos in 40 days. We're very excited about it. We're here. We're still in the first third, I think, of it, but we're getting through it. So yeah, check all this stuff out. Comment, let us know your thoughts on this Miami Marlins team. For John, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls, and we'll see you next time.